As we discussed earlier, this interview is about insecurity, the upsurge of insecurity in some states, especially within the North Central and Niger State. Is it okay if we begin the questions now? So, what do you think are the underlying factors and that is driving the recent upsurge in attacks within Plateau, Benue, and Niger states, contributing to the alarming rise in insecurity?
First, I would like to start by saying that the factors that contribute to insecurity in Nigeria generally, and particularly in Plateau State and other parts of the country, are both exogenous and indigenous. And what I mean by that is that when you look at the indigenous factors, you look at first the quality of governance we've had over the years as a country. For a very long time, we've been battling with issues of good governance, delivering, quality governance, meeting the yearnings and aspirations of the people. This is very key in terms of creating what is referred to as structural peace. Now, where there is a failure of governance, then you have structural violence. And that is very key in understanding the reason for escalation of violence. Apart from that, you've also had a history of, communal conflicts and so many other, challenges, which incidentally have led to rising incidents of flow of illicit arms into various parts of the country. And this is also very key in the escalation of conflicts. Unfortunately, when most parts of Nigeria, some of these areas that have experienced communal conflicts, when the conflicts ended, there were no deliberate attempts to mop up illicit weapons from these places. Once you allow illicit weapons to continue to circulate, the place is, you continue to have rising insecurity, particularly in the areas of what we are witnessing now: kidnapping, banditry, and selected attacks on communities. All these are done with the aid of illicit weapons. Now, that now leads me to the exogenous factors. And one key one is the increasing collapse of governance and state capacity in the West African sub-region towards, curbing or dealing with issues of insecurity and most of these conflicts, that have occurred. The Gaddafi regime, I always mention this, when it collapsed way back in 2011, led to free for all democratization of illicit weapons. And most of these arms diffused into the West African sub-region. And today, in fact, you will recall that that was when Boko Haram insurgency became so intense. And then
That's
with
right.
the coming of Boko Haram, we now had, it was like a relay. As Boko Haram was perpetrating violence, the bandits also came up, killer headsmen also came up and continued with the criminality. So when you put all this together, and then let me also mention very key issue: the failing capacity of the Nigerian state to both manage conflicts and to also, provide security for its citizens, has led to all this that we are witnessing today. So even when communal conflicts tended to douse, we now had a lot of criminality being perpetrated in various parts of the country. And like for us in Plateau State, some of the places that are currently witnessing violent conflicts or clash, witnessing attacks. Initially, they were very peaceful communities. In fact, people ran away from, crisis zones in Riom, in Barkin Ladi, in, other places, and then they found safe heaven in Mangu local government. But incidentally, today, Mangu local government has become a theater of violence. And it all
Okay, yes,
started as a
it's
result.
good, sir. It's good that you brought up Plateau State. Which
Mm.
specific region or communities within that within Plateau have been hit the hardest with these
It
security
started.
challenges, and what dynamics have made them more vulnerable?
Yes, like I mentioned earlier, the violence, contemporary violence in Plateau State, all started from Jos North local government. But that was purely more of a political contestation over the control of Jos North local government between indigenous groups and those who were categorized or seen to be settlers. But it too soon took a religious and ethnic dimension, which now led to violence. And then, in the course of time, that spread to Jos South local government, and then to Riom, Barkin Ladi. Then later on, we now had Basa local government as well. All these local governments, are contagious to each other. I mean, they share borders, So you can see the spillover effect of this violence. And then more recently, it now went into, before it went into Mangu local government, it also touched Bokos local government. Then now we have Mangu local government. These are the areas that are quite very hot when it comes to these violent attacks. And then basically, like I said, it's mostly as a result. Initially, yes, there were farmer headers issues, which traditionally could have been settled amicably using traditional methods of dispute resolution and even through the formal methods of dispute resolution through the courts. But then it soon escalated, obviously because of the multiple factors I had mentioned earlier, particularly the issue of illicit weapons. And then we are now having what we are having today. So, but like I said, the issue of governance is very key because when this conflict started or when this violence started, many people were arrested. Government will set up commissions of inquiry to look into the remote and immediate causes of the conflict, and sometimes recommendations would be made, and then that was the end of it. White paper, I remember, on one occasion was released, but again, that was the end of it. Implementation has been a very key factor. So lack of political will is also very central in
Um,
this.
Yes, talking about solutions. We've seen over the years efforts being made to tackle this issue of insecurity and banditry.
Hmm.
Why have these strategies aimed at tackling this problem
Number
failed to
one
yield
strategy.
the desired results over the years?
Yes, number one strategy is lack of political will on the part of government, especially what we witnessed in the past 8 years before the coming in of this present government. I think there was virtually total absence or lack of will on the part of the government to deal with this situation. And this is very key because the bulk lies on the table of government. Government has the primary responsibility of maintaining law and order and providing security for its citizens. And so, where government failed, then it pushes people who are already or who have become vulnerable to begin to contemplate other ways of protecting themselves, and which pushes them to, adopting self help methods. So political will is very key. And then I've also noted this, that the issue of our borders, Both internal borders and external borders is very key. It is high time we started, deploying technology to try to man, our borders, particularly our external borders. A lot of arms come into this country. And to the best of my knowledge, even though we have the Presidential Committee on Small Arms, and I think it is now commissioned, uh, if I'm correct, even though we have those structures or institutions in place, there hasn't been any well, organized framework for disarmament, mopping up illicit arms in Nigeria up to this time. And I can say for free that for as long as these arms continue to circulate in the country, we'll continue to have insecurity because uh, I don't want to go into the proliferation of small arms and light weapons at the moment because it's quite scary, actually.
Mr. Samuel, so what do you think should be sorry, what innovative or comprehensive measures do you think can be applied to um, treat or tackle this issue of insecurity?
I'm happy that, for long, experts have been talking about, the overhauling of the security architecture in this country. And somehow, maybe the leaders then did not actually understand what overhauling the security sector means, which in experts refer to as security sector reforms. First, we have the problem of lack of capacity of our security agencies in terms of recruitment, in terms of number of personnel, in terms of training, in terms of use of modern techniques to fight crime, to fight insurgency, to provide security. That is very key. We need to look that way. And I just hope, if going by the pronouncements of or statements of our current leaders, both at the national and state level, is anything to write home about, then perhaps we might give them the benefit of doubt at the moment to look forward to having better days ahead. I'm quite happy about the deployment of security, the operation Hakorin Damisa in Mangu local government, which the chief of army staff himself personally visited the theater and then moved the headquarters of Operation Safe Haven to Mangu local government. And I think since then, there has been some kind of calm, and people are going about at least with some sense of security in the area. So, if this kind of responses, we'll see more of this kind of responses. That is very key. Is very important. I've also mentioned the issue of securing our borders. Our borders are very porous. National borders. People come in and out without being adequately screened or checked. We are being deceived by this ECOWAS protocol on free movement of persons, towards providing or promoting regional integration. But it is high time we understood that any effort or any foreign policy that is going to lead or threaten the national interest of Nigeria, we should review that and look into it very critically. So that is very, very key. And then, of course, the issue of, providing a framework for managing pastoralism in Nigeria is very key. Gone are the days when pastoralists will be moving up and down, from one ecological zone to the other in search of pasture. We've gone far, far ahead. The world has gone far, far ahead. What is, the global best practice is ranching. And so it is high time these pastoralists change their mentality. Understand that, look, ranching is the best form of pastoralism. And they can actually do that. It's a very simple thing. Sell some of your cows, buy land, and then fence it, and you do, rear your cows there. adopt modern technology in the rearing of cows. And that, to a large extent, is going to limit all these clashes between the pastoralist and native crop farmers in any part of the country. And then, of course, the issue of Boko Haram, I know efforts are being made, but more still need to be done. Of course, banditry and all these, I mean, these bandits, like what happened in Niger, a few days ago, quite pathetic. But I believe that in the course of time, if the right efforts are put in place or taken, we are going to have a more peaceful Nigeria. Then, of course, the issue of addressing structural violence. This is a bit more technical, but I know the experts understand that. If politicians aspire to political offices and with the promise they are going to deliver dividends of democracy to the people, and they go and forget about the people, they are instead siphoning public funds into their pockets and, making life very unbearable to the citizens. There is this theory in the academic parlance that is called frustration aggression theory. People become frustrated, and I can argue that long before now, Nigeria has been living on a cake of gunpowder, and so it only needed some triggers to actually escalate the situation. And unfortunately, we've fallen neck deep into this quagmire.
Okay, it's good that while preferring solutions, you spoke about our borders. Now let's
Yes,
talk about the contribution of other states, like other neighboring states and regional organization,
yes,
to ending or creating a unified and comprehensive approach to addressing insecurity, recognizing the connection of the issue, how
yes.
interconnected it is within borders.
Yes, let me begin with our internal borders, that is states within Nigeria. All these states that are witnessing this crisis, mostly in the northern part of the country, must come together and tell themselves the truth. There has to be synergy, there has to be collaboration at that level to commonly tackle insecurity in these areas.
Mr. Samuel Obadiah for this interview. We're very
Thank
grateful.
you very much. It's my pleasure.